Hi everyone, welcome to our episode of Rewrite the Rules. Today we have with us Zinnia Rivera. Zinnia is a chemical engineer by education. She's a seasoned business leader and has worked across the FMCG and food retail industry for many, many years and is currently a freelance management consultant. So welcome to our podcast, Zinnia. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Rajita, for inviting me here. It's my pleasure to be here in your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I was looking through your career trajectory and I would love to hear what drove your decisions. Like, how did you land where you are? And if you can tell us a little bit about your background and what you've done so far, I think our listeners will really enjoy listening to, hearing your story.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, my educational background is chemical engineering, and my first several years was really in R&D. So I was with Procter and Gamble, and later on moved to Johnson and Johnson Philippines as an R&D person. I used to develop all these toiletry products that they now sell.
Okay.
And but many years later, I was invited to shift over to the business side and become the head of Johnson and Johnson Philippines. And
wow.
that's how I ended up in the business leadership role. And since then, I never looked back because I really enjoyed it there. When I left the company, I worked for another company, which is Jollibee Foods Corporation. So in total, I've had 14 years as a company head, president of a company in two different companies. And I would say that, that was probably the peak of my career. 2 years ago, I decided to go easy on myself and, go for a more flexible lifestyle. And that's why I'm now a freelance management consultant. And I also do executive coaching on the side.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. That's a lot of feathers in your hat. I'm very curious. I'm a person of science myself, but I moved into the business side of things. Did you always envision yourself in the current work that you're doing? Did you ever think that this is where you land?
Not at all. Not at all. I was totally enjoying myself in R&D. And in fact, I thought that I would retire as an R&D person. But one day, I was offered the position. I didn't even ask for it. I never aspired to become a president or head of a company, but it was offered to me and I took the leap and never regretted since then.
So you're making it sound so easy, but I'm sure there was a lot of support that you had. There were a lot of questions that you had. How did you feel when all of these changes were being made to your career?
Yeah, indeed, it was a struggle for me. It was a big shock for me to be even offered that job. Of course, I was flattered, but really the questions in my mind were, why me? What was it that I was doing? I never even, dreamed of this. And it was really coming from the left field. So I was really shocked and I was really doubting whether did I make a mistake? That even crossed my mind. And then, but I did a lot of deliberation and discernment. I asked a lot of people. And one of the people who really convinced me to go into it was my husband. He said that you're probably underselling yourself. You think you can't do this, you can't do that. But these people, the boss of the boss who actually offered me the job, I think they know better. They're probably seeing something in you that you are not seeing in yourself just yet. So, because they would not invest in you and take a bet on you if they know they're going to fail, because your failure is their failure.
So tell me, what were you most worried about when you made this shift?
Yeah.
And I'm asking because a lot of people think of careers as very linear paths, right? Like you said, it's R&D and let's just continue in R&D. But you suddenly made a shift into what I would say is a parallel, but a more, or maybe even a tangential stream in a company.
I think it was really my mindset about what are the requirements of the job that was keeping me from soaring high in my initial months of the job. Because, as an R&D person, technical competence is really paramount, right? and you
Yeah.
you rise through the ranks because you know more than the others. You are more experienced, and therefore you can make decisions faster and better. And that's why you have the right to lead other people. That was my
Mm.
mindset. It was an unusual trajectory for a career path, and I felt I was really very inadequate in these other things, and therefore I put a lot of pressure in myself to learn about marketing, sales, and finance as quickly as possible. So much so that I was very sickly in my first few months on the job because of the stress. And but thankfully, I was able to have a sit down session with the boss of my boss, the one who offered the job, and whom I really considered as my mentor. And I told him, I confessed to him that look, I'm really struggling on the job. I feel very inadequate. Can you please mentor me? And this was what he said. He said, Zinnia, if you think you're not able to do the job because you're inadequate in marketing, sales, or finance, well, we could have gotten a person with a solid background in these fields, but we didn't. We chose you because we saw that you have the leadership potential and that you have the capability to go beyond. So relax, just take it easy and be who you really are. That's what he told me. And for me, it was really a moment of, realization, an aha moment for me that, yeah, this is what I've been missing all along because I'm trying to pretend to be someone else that I am not.
Fantastic. We talk a lot about how confidence is not just about having like the theoretical knowledge of what the work is, but there is also this whole section of how do you build confidence in yourself. But Zina, tell me, how much was being a woman in an organization that was a big organization like J&J, how much did that matter? Because a lot of times I see that women leaders are typically not associated with sales, right? Like, the usual notion is that sales is for men, and it's like, so my question is, how much that factor in? How did you take that? Like,
I feel very grateful that J&J has always been, and even up to now, a very inclusive kind of company for women.
mm,
So at the time this all happened to me, that I was given that particular role, I already had some uh, role models, women leaders who made it
mm,
much higher levels in the organization, albeit not a shift from R&D to the business side, like
yes,
women in marketing, women in finance, and then they rose through the ranks. So there were such models already at that time. So I felt that, oh, there's somebody I can follow, and that was a big source of confidence on my part that it can be done. And really, if it were not for that kind of environment, I don't think I would have thrived.
yeah. It sounds like you had the right company environment. You also had the right kind of mentors who supported you in this shifted journey. And you said something very interesting about role models, right? Who else would you say are your role models in your career?
Well, I had one, not a woman though,
Uh-huh.
but one of my first bosses while I was still at Procter and Gamble, and I really looked up to him because of the way he related with people. And like when you're in front of him, it's like you're the only person in the room, and he's really looking at you straight in the eye and wanting to find out how the children are, how the family is, and so on and so forth. And it just resonated with me that this person really knew how to connect with people, and he has been my role model as far as that particular facet of life is for me.
Okay. Okay. I'm so curious to figure out, how did somebody recognize and uh, see your work in R&D and D and think that, hey, this person can be a fantastic leader for our company in Philippines? How did that happen?
How did that happen? It was also a mystery to me how that all happened. And then, upon looking back, I think I made myself really visible because as an R&D leader, and especially if you're higher in the organization, right, you get invited to all these executive meetings with other
Mm.
executives, and sometimes you're asked to present. and maybe not often, but you're there and they see you, how you conduct yourself, how you contribute into meetings, and so on. So I believe that those little interactions all compounded into an image that they have of me, that I'm one capable leader. Never lose the opportunity or pass up on an opportunity to be part of a meeting or maybe a project team that exposes you to other departments, because it's how multifunctional you are really determines the amount of opportunities that may be available to you in the future. Because if you just stay on in this narrow path of yours, this is your function, this is your department, you're very good at it and nothing else, then there will not be too many opportunities offered ahead of you, and you'll be
Hmm.
missing out. That's one of the learnings I've had that I'd like to share with others.
Yeah, so really very. It's very simple, but also very astute, right? Like that if there is an opportunity ahead of you, take it.
Yes.
And I think what I've noticed is there are a lot of things that women can do that sometimes they um, just won't, right? Like you said, like an opportunity, if it's coming up, sometimes you may be like, I don't know if it'll really lead to anything. It's not my job.
Yeah.
But then if you're being invited to the table, why not just go? I think that's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I really want to talk to you a little bit about balance. Twice in this conversation so far, you've mentioned that to be able to have better balance. So, tell me a little bit more about how did you recognize the importance of balance in your life, and maybe what does that mean to you as well?
Yeah, that particular incident where I became very sickly in my first few months as a business unit head really made me realize the importance of taking care of myself. And so since then, I've been very conscious and mindful of the work life balance that I'm having at that point in time. Uh,
Hmm.
I think when you think of work life balance, you have different aspects, right? It's how you balance your professional life with your family life. I have four kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So big family. And at the time, all of these, the promotion that I got and all that, uh, were happening. They were just in grade school. They needed tutoring with
Yeah.
homework. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that they're doing well and so on and so forth. You have to attend school meetings with parents, teachers meetings and all that. And I had to do that. And I think one of the biggest helps I had was that my husband, as I mentioned, has also been very
Yeah.
supportive. And we would say, okay, we have two kids. We have four kids. You take two and I will take two. So it's a 50-50. Of course, I cannot underestimate the fact that here in my country, we can get help, right? And of course, I have that also. I used to have that as well during the time when I was bringing up my kids and raising them. So these were the support systems that I had to set up in order to be successful at work.
Okay. And then when you spoke of balance the second time around, when like the decision that you took now to to be more of a freelancer and set your own company up, how did balance become part of the equation then?
Yeah. Okay. So there was this pandemic, right? And during the pandemic, in our industry, which is the food industry, it was hit big time, and
Yeah.
it was super stressful during that time. And but during that time as well, we were work from home, and for the first time, I realized the benefits of work from home, and I said it can be done. And so even when the companies already started inviting their employees back to work, I said, no, that's not for me anymore. I know I can do much better and perform much better uh, while working from home. I want this lifestyle. And that's the reason why I left the company and started, just, doing freelance.
Yeah, I think, managing your energy becomes just so important. Like you have just limited energy, you need to pick and choose where you want to spend it, for instance. But my question to you is again, going back to balance, what kind of an advice on balance would you give to people who are in middle of their career or just starting their career?
I think it's something that you just have to commit to. So when you say that you need to spend, you know, a couple of hours at the gym, or just walking around the neighborhood to get that exercise, you just have to protect the time, and commit that it will be used for that particular purpose, because it's very easy to say, oh, I have other things to do, my boss wants this submitted tomorrow, and therefore I have to work overtime. But you will not be doing good service to yourself if you do that. You're abusing yourself.
And because this is a podcast about women and women's leadership, I would love to ask you how easy or hard was it for you to be able to prioritize your balance as a woman?
It has been very difficult, and every day is a struggle. But I'm not ashamed to admit that I multitask. When I'm in the office, I would call up the house and check on the kids, or make sure that the groceries were done and all that. uh, I do it seamlessly. No, it's not like when you're 8 hours in the office, all those 8 hours really just office. I can multitask, and I am not ashamed to admit that. But also, when I'm at home and the kids are already asleep and I feel that I needed to work on something, I don't hesitate to open my laptop and do the work. That's how I feel about it, that I've been able to balance it. I guess, you better talk to my kids.
What do you think they would say? Like, what do you think they would say about your multitasking?
Oh, well, actually, I think, you know, uh, they might say that, I didn't do enough. They might say that, because there were indeed times when, I was at home, but I was doing something else. It's like they knew that I
Yeah.
was not 100% present with them, but they turned out okay.
I think that's what matters in the end.
At the end of the
Yeah, yeah. Since I'm very curious and I love stories. So, I would like to hear if there is a story you want to share with us about your career that either really shaped your career in some way or it shaped your thinking in some way. Anything that you want to share with our listeners.
Yes. So earlier you were mentioning about the need for visibility and networking.
Yes,
That's
yes.
really one of my uh, biggest learning, in my career. Um, I am an introvert, so I'm not very used to, or I'd rather not really socialize. And usually when I was still in R&D back then, and usually we would have these big meetings, regional meetings, Asia Pacific, all executives are there, some even global meetings. And
Mm.
usually there are group dinners after that, and others go on for a drink. I wasn't like that. I really just would quietly skip dinner, order room service, go into my hotel room. One day, my boss, R&D boss, said, Zinnia, you didn't join us again for dinner last night. Where were you? And I told him, oh, I had to catch up on work and so on and so forth. And he said, you better learn how to network, because you might need those people someday. Yeah. And it was really, it jolted me, because I didn't feel that I needed them at that point in time. But yes, maybe in the future I would. And indeed, I did find out that as I moved up in the organization, you realize you don't have all the resources to do the things you want to do. You have to tap on other people's resources to help you out. And that's when the networking really uh, really matters. And so you have to start early, plant the seeds, maybe on a low maintenance basis, but make your presence felt. And that's, again, one of the lessons I'd like to pass on to the younger ones, that, don't underestimate the need for networking and being visible.
Yeah, such a great story. And I think I'm sure many people will resonate with this. Sometimes, whether it's your innate nature, like you're an introvert, like you said, or you have other obligations, you have to get back home because you have something going on. I think many women that we've spoken to have said that networking in the traditional way doesn't come very naturally to them. Um, uh, I have one question on growth, and then definitely, a message. I have a time capsule kind of question as well. But on the growth piece, I'd love to hear, how do you define growth? Like, what are your terms of defining growth?
Growth for me is largely learning something new, constantly expanding my horizon, constantly expanding my perspective in whatever I am doing. So it's continuous learning.
Okay. Is there something you're learning right now?
Yes, yes. In fact, as a management consultant now, I'm learning a lot because before you would have this career in this company, you stay for so many years, but then that's just one company, right? But now I'm a management consultant. I get called on to do this, to do that with different companies. So it's a mind blowing opening of perspectives for me that, oh, I get to work in an industry I've never worked on before. So I am indeed learning a lot, even at this age, even at this stage in my life.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And do you also focus on personal learning, in the sense, do you have other interests outside of work that you also pursue and learn?
Yes, I do. I'm an avid tennis player.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been playing for like maybe 30, 30 plus years. No, since, I was in college, I was playing tennis and up to now. And yeah, I keep watch of all the grand slams that are happening. And
Yeah.
last year I picked one item in my bucket list, and that was to watch the Wimbledon
Oh, wow.
finals. Yes. So, these are things, little things that keep me excited outside of work. But they're a big, stress relief for me as well.
Absolutely. Not to mention the fitness benefit of playing tennis every day. So, fantastic. Zini, one question that I would like to ask you is, if you could message back to your younger self, what advice would you share with yourself?
Actually, a lot. Earlier, I mentioned that, try to be multifunctional, not to be too just narrow minded on your department, your function, because the more you do that, the more value you will add to the company, the more opportunities will be open to you. That's number one. Number two, maybe is, grab every opportunity that you can uh, have in terms of self improvement. There's no stopping, even when you're in senior uh, levels in the organization, even when you're close to retirement. I mean, there's always something to do, always something to better yourself. I think last but not the least is probably be mindful of your personal brand equity and be intentional in how you want to develop it,
Yeah.
because we are all brands, right? We offer something, we have a unique selling proposition to other people, to the company we work for. What is that? What is that for you as a person? It's how people perceive you at the end of the day, the image that they have of you, what they talk about you in the hallways, in the corridors, outside the boardroom. That's really very important. And it may not be that important when you're at the lower levels in the organization, but it increasingly becomes important at the higher levels when performance and competence is already equal amongst the big wigs who are occupying the top levels in the C-suite. What will set you apart? It's your image.
Fantastic. Um, I was just making a note of all the things that I've learned from this conversation. So for me, I think the first one is the how to think of networking and visibility, and how to change your perspective on that, because it is an important currency to have in an organization. I think that's my first learning from our conversation. The second one is to have faith in your abilities. And I'm going back to the story that you just mentioned about, when you were offered the head of J&J role, and your husband said they must have seen something in you. So have faith in your own self. And I think the third one is what you just mentioned on personal branding. What a fantastic nugget on how you should not leave it to chance for other people to decide who you are, but you actually proactively invest in it and create your own personal brand. This was very nice. I am so glad to have made the connection with you. And thank you for taking time for being here with us today in our podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to share all these learnings. And you made me think really hard, Regita.
Oh, it didn't seem like you had to think too hard, but it came so easy to you. I'm sure if we could speak, there would be so many more stories, I'm sure, of everything that we want to hear from you. But thank you today. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.